In 1978, when I was 19 years old, I went to the Rainbow Gathering, and a man, or a little guy, actually, a little brother, pulled me into the tent. He says, "The Master wants to speak to you. The Master wants to speak to you." And I said, "Master? What Master?" I'd already been hanging out with Fred and kind of was familiar with meditation and Yogananda. And there he was, this guy, really young, and he was sitting in the full lotus, and he taught me how to do pranayama breathing technique called the fire breath, and how to look into the third eye. And part of the spiritual process of this invoking of the light, which Isis has just shared with us, is it's a physical process. It's an attunement and a vibration of the physical body. And there are many different bodies, multiple aspects to our spiritual consciousness. So I recommend people become familiar with the Kriya Yoga, or the science of the still breath. Meditate means meditare, to wait in the middle. So we wait in the middle of our breath. A very long, slow, deep breath, offering the in-breath to the out-breath. This invokes a powerful presence of consciousness into our beings and helps us illuminate our consciousness and connect to our divine self, our over self-I am presence. At a very young age, I was looking out, gazing past the planets. I was looking for total view. And I was inspired by the Great Pyramid and propelled by a sincere desire to know when I asked a friend of mine, I was talking about pyramids at 16, and she says, "Oh, I know the Pyramid Man. He lives up on the hill." So I went up and met Fred Bell, and he had just started this company called Pyramid. And he started out with this pyramid I have on my head. It's a single gold pyramid. Steel frame with nickel and gold plating. And he had contact with sannyasi, and he had a history. He lived in this house here. And these are some of the systems that we developed, and I'll be explaining these tomorrow for those of you who are staying. We're going to actually experience them, and I'll explain how they work and all that stuff. I'm not going to go too into that, but I do want you to know that we created a little portal vortex like this, that we utilize lasers and crystals. Now check this one out. That's a portal inside one of these quad systems, utilizing pyramids, lasers, and crystals. You notice a little UFO there? That's actually a vortex. The pyramids actually settle into the building there. And I was having experiences inside this at a very early age. Anyway, this is Nikola Tesla. And Fred was very much into him. He was a Venusian, developing very high technology. Fred was a scientist of a very high order. And when he was 8 years old, just a little history on him, his great uncle invented the telephone. His father invented the automatic transmission and the alternator with Henry Ford. So when Fred was 8 years old, he was hanging out with Bob McCulloch of McCulloch Engines, Bob Johnson. One of his ancestors was Ethan Allen and started the Revolutionary War. But at this age, Fred was repairing television sets, which were huge. They had the big tubes. And then he was eventually conscripted into the Air Force. And an interesting story on this motorcycle was when he was stationed in Arkansas. He was conscripted at the age of 17. He had a PhD in physics at 15. And he was studying the shockwave of the atomic bomb at the University of Michigan. So he understood the negativity of nuclear power. And this motorcycle, he ended up crashing in Arkansas. Some years later, he had a projector, which is back there. I guess Cobra didn't bring it, but it's a device that looks like this, and it's standalone. He was looking for a motorcycle like this in a memory. Well, you want to manifest things with scalar technology in your life, whether it be world peace or different things that magnetize to you. This technology can amplify and speed up the process of what's called the secret, whereby your consciousness manifests things into reality. And he actually manifested the very motorcycle that he crashed. The person that bought it had never used it. It was passed on to their daughter, and he bought that very same motorcycle and had the bent handlebar that he had. So his technology is for real, it works. This was his Eastern teacher. After working for the Air Force at Point Reyes, California, where he was observing UFOs coming in at 15,000 miles an hour, and they were filling out the DDS 332 forms, the watch commander was burning them. He said, "You can't do that, that's public knowledge." And they said, "Oh yes, we can. You gonna be an upstart?" And he says, "Yes, I am." They put him in a straitjacket, and he negotiated an honorable discharge and left the military. He then went to work under Werner von Braun at NASA, and during this time he had an Eastern teacher. This man's name was Syringe of Roy. The pyramid energy which we used is progressive energy transfer through geometric focusing and dynamic electrical amplification over a measured plane of coordinates. This is a Tesla coil field, and you see the divine masculine and feminine energies within the pyramid. The pyramid principle is a principle of matter made flesh. There's a life force, there's an aura. Your body also has a life force, an aura, and a generated field. And that's a lot of what our tachyon energies and our consciousness is about. It's literally raising the vibratory frequency, the auric template of the body. And we have some struggles, there's some things going against that. These are the divine masculine and feminine vortexes that is the essence of each person's Merkaba field. The person could be placed in the middle of that. There are pyramids being found. This one's being found underneath the Bermuda Triangle. There's this one of the people in our group. Pyramids have all kinds of uses. They can do fruit. And you can actually wear them on your head, and your pineal gland is inside the king's chamber. I also have some of these other sacred geometric shapes up here, which I've had made. And these eventually will be used in a light show. These are for sale. We will be plated. I can have these plated in gold, and then I will dip them in crystal dust, and you can use lasers. This is one of Semyassi's beam ship. This is where they're from. This is the procession of Equinox. This is Master Hilarion. And some of my out-of-body experiences, I wasn't very grounded. Fred wasn't explaining to me, and a very famous contactee named Gabriel Green told me to come to the desert. I'm going to make this story real short because it's on Coast to Coast, and I have many other things I want to share tonight. But he basically sent a teacher to me who was a military resistance member movement guy. He was working in one of the government joint alien reptilian abduction bases, and he defected and chose not to work for them. They said he was going to prison, and Semyassi came down and freed him from prison, put her hand over the lock. He got out, and he basically goes wherever they tell him to go, and he brings energy to positive people, and he breaks up what we now know as archon or negative psychic attack energies upon certain people. He works cloaked behind the light. He would just go into a room and do energy things and shift the things around so that innocent people would not be brought under the spell of negativity. This is a ship that appeared in the desert, something like this. It was raining fire with Gabriel Green, myself, Michael Leachin, and this military guy. And I had a telepathic communication because I had been praying to Semyassi. They were following me down the hill here when I lived in Bluebird. And I was crying. I was having these out-of-body experiences. And I tried to tell my family. They didn't really get the reality of it. They still don't, maybe, perhaps, but I'm hoping they're going to see that I'm not alone here, that many other people have had experiences. And it's a positive thing, and it's an uplifting thing, and it's a healing thing. The ship rained a fire beneath itself, the ionized cloud, and I had a telepathic communication. She said, "Well, now you know, Rob." And I was crying and feeling really happy. I asked her some questions, and she answered. And then I said, "Well, could you land?" And she said, "No, you'd think you're the Messiah." So, anyway, I knew she wasn't going to land, and that the military guy was following the telepathic conversation said, "Well, Rob," he goes, "you've seen enough," and I go, "Yeah, we can go." So now I knew that they were real. I wasn't a figment of my imagination. It wasn't a drug trip. It was a real physical thing, and that there was a purpose and a mission to that. And I maybe regret it a little bit now, but I turned my back on a UFO. I was like, "There, she's not going to land. I don't need to see it anymore. I'd already seen it falling." But now it was a close-up, real thing for me.